Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. It's a pleasure to be with you. Mr. Gaunt will be joining us momentarily, but in the meantime, we do have, not that it's a substitute by any means, he's a man in and of himself, Dr. Dennis Sanchez, the AI doctor, for our Monday AI session. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. How you doing, bro?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Been looking forward to this all day long. Always nice
Me
to get
too.
a chance to see you, talk to you, and definitely further our education on AI, to say the least.
I can't believe how far you've come about AI since we first started
Thanks
talking.
to you. Yeah. Thanks to you. Yeah. I know. I was just thinking back on that. It's funny you bring that up. I was thinking back to that just, I think over the weekend. It's like, where not so much just me, but just the whole AI industry, right? It was not long ago where we're going, what's this thing called Chat GPT? And, you look where we are now as far as the industry, and, the analogy that all of us usually give on Mondays when we have you on is our heads are spinning. Things are going so very, very fast, right? That's about it. I can't imagine for you being in the thick of it all day, every day. Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, it is a great, great time to have Dr. Dennis Sanchez on the show today, because folks, we had a major announcement that came out this morning. It was not planned. It was on CNBC, and who was involved with it? Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, and Sam Altman, of course, the CEO of OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT and many other great things. And what was funny, Dennis, I think I was telling you about this, when CNBC, their tech reporter, he started the interview off by saying, you guys called me here and I didn't know what you wanted to talk about. So, what is
I'm a little bit at your mercy.
Yeah, exactly. Then they dropped this
Wow.
$100 billion bomb on everybody. And my gosh, it was perfect timing for our subject this afternoon, which is, what does Nvidia's $100 billion investment mean for you? Right? That's what we're talking about. Now, let's go back real quick here, lay out the stage of what we're going to be discussing, get the stock market side going. So again, this was an absolutely surprising announcement this morning between the two gentlemen I just mentioned, a $100 billion investment by Nvidia into OpenAI. This investment is going to be a 10 gigawatt project. Now you may be going, what the heck does that mean? Well, don't worry. We're going to explain
a measure of
that.
Power.
Yep, a whole bunch of powers. I'm going to give you an analogy here. A 10 gigawatt project, something, again, no one has ever seen before. So our purpose today is to say, look, what does this mean for you? How are you going to be using AI in the future? But we're also going to get some of these terms that we've been throwing out here. Dennis is going to be explaining these into layman's terms and, try to make sense of it, because folks, whether you're investing in AI or you're using AI in your personal life, your business life, there's a lot of terms that you may be hearing and maybe even using. You don't truly understand what they are. So that's going to be part of our education each Monday when Dennis is on for the AI segment, is to really begin to explain what these are so that you, of course, can further your knowledge. And again, that is one of the many, many reasons that we have Dennis on each and every Monday. Real quick, before we get started on the stock market side, Dennis, what did you think of this announcement? Were you surprised, or were you like the rest of us, like, my God, this is serious money that Nvidia is investing?
Honestly, I'm a little bit numb by it.
Are you really? Okay.
It's becoming, well, and I look at how it's dominating. This kind of information is dominating the news every single day. And it's a handful of players. It's not like it's a new name every day. It's Microsoft, it's Meta, Oracle, it's Meta, it's
obviously Nvidia.
OpenAI is always kind of in the mix there. Yeah, and Nvidia seems to be really dominating the conversation. So it's hard to even understand what $100 billion deal is, but we're throwing these around, 50 billion, 100 billion, just in the investments in this technology. And we don't, we're sitting out here going, I don't even understand that number. It's so big. But then again, like you said, how is that going to filter down to us? Because we know it's going to have ramifications on a lot of different levels.
Yes.
The stock value, our lives. And I think we're here to talk about how it's going to impact our lives today.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we are. Yeah, not only, and again, when you say impact our lives, it can be from a lot of different standpoints, whether it's from an investment standpoint, whether it's from, again, personal usage, business usage, et cetera. I think with this announcement today, as we're going to go into more detail here momentarily, this is, again, revolutionary, right? This is a company, meaning Nvidia, and by no means are we sitting here recommending the stock or anything. It's just they're at the core, heart of all this. This this is on top of the massive announcements they made last week with significant investments into Oracle and significant investments into a lot of different things. I mean, Intel, $5 billion investment last week into Intel, and again, it's just mind-boggling the amount of money. And one point I want to really try to get across today is, folks, this is whether you end up using, you believe in it or whatever, AI, it is changing the economics of the world, right? And as we'll get into on this 10 gigawatt situation, 10 gigawatt project, I mean, let your imagination wander. And I wanted to get to it, but I don't think we'll have time. But just think about this for a second from the infrastructure standpoint, right? You've got to buy the land. You've got to build a power generating facility. You've got all of the construction costs that are going to it. I mean, you talk about an economic engine, right? You think about it's just technology, but it's not, because in order to have the technology, you have to have the infrastructure to do this. And so, right, Jason Gaunt? I mean, this is about infrastructure on top of just AI, right? It's amazing. It's a whole ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps growing every day, right? That's the part that you can plan for. And I mean, like, well, maybe you guys touched on it. I ironically had to reboot my machine because it needed to update its BIOS before. But 4 Hoover dams, right? I mean, part of it is just a matter of how much energy can we produce, right? I mean, you're seeing the likes of the solar names starting to pick up again today. Solar Edge, some of those Enphase. It's going to be less about where are we going to store it, but just real time demand, right? And that's the thing that I think is going to be so important too. You've seen these nuclear stocks go parabolic. Some of them where it's like, oh my gosh, this is up 50, 60%. I'm going to cut it. And now it's up another 100% from there. Right. So it's gotten, I mean, you can't even guess at this point how much energy we're going to need. But the tough part is we don't know, right? I mean, there have to be economies of scale at some point. There have to be efficiencies. There aren't going to be 100 large language models. They're not going to be 30 providers of AI technology that all think they're going to be the winner. There will be some, I would say, consolidation, like you mentioned, OpenAI, sure. Nvidia, that today. We're just right now in the everyone thinks they can do it phase, which probably overinflates what the needs are, but doesn't mean that it's not going to stay overinflated for some time.
Right. I was going to surprise everybody, but you took my surprise away from me. It's like, you took a piece of candy away from somebody. This, just to put it in perspective, and again, we're going to go through this later, but now that Jason has said it, I want to just break this down. 10 gigawatts of power. Okay. Let's put it in layman's terms for everybody to understand. So 1 gigawatt of power is 1 billion, with a B like boy, 1 billion watts. Okay. So that's just 1 gigawatt. So picture this. 1 gigawatt of power equals the amount of power that it takes to power 750,000 homes. Just 1 gigawatt. And again, wow. They announced 10 gigawatts. Okay. Here's another way to look at it. 10 gigawatts is enough to power 8 million homes. And to Jason's point,
6 of Marty McFly's cars.
Yep.
Because you needed 1.21 gigawatts.
That's right. And to Jason's point about the Hoover Dam generates about 2.5 gigawatts at its peak. So for 10 gigawatts, you need 4 Hoover dams that are running at full capacity. Jeez. That's how much power this project is going to take. And remember, folks, this is just one of many, right? This is just one of many projects out there. Now, to my knowledge, there has not been one that has been announced, this one, to this scale. What's going to be really interesting digging into this, because again, all the story came out late this morning, is how this $100 billion investment by Nvidia into OpenAI, how this money is going to be spent. Because it's not like Jensen Huang is going to go, hey, guess what? We're going to front the money for you to build this massive facility. There's some, I'll call it creative accounting that's going to go on with this money and the time period that it's going to be paid and how it's to be spent and that type of thing. But, Jason, as you were joining us, as Dennis and I were saying, what's amazing about this whole thing, this is, again, just one of many projects that Nvidia has announced, right? We had the announcement, like I said, last week with Intel, $5 billion and the Oracle deal and, on and on and on. It's like, my gosh, this is anybody, you don't hear anybody else in the GPU space, in the chip manufacturing space, even coming close to them. It's like they're a million years ahead of anybody else.
Well, if they had to invest in Intel, Nvidia, that was the $5 billion, which seems like nothing now.
Yeah. The petty cash account, probably.
Petty cash. We'll take it out of petty cash.
Yeah.
And it has to be, of course, one of the formidable chip makers in the world, and yet they couldn't, keep pace and do that too. So there's got to be a lot of separation between them and everybody else.
Absolutely. All right. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and recap today on Wall Street. We'll talk about what the Nvidia stock did today and then get into this story. What does this $100 billion investment by Nvidia into OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT, what does this mean to you? We're going to lay out some different opportunities that we see potentially for many of you. So don't go anywhere. Let's turn it over to Kristen Snow. Right now, Traffic Center. Hello, Kristen. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on Newstalk 780 KOH with Dr. Dennis Sanchez and Mr. Jason Gaunt. All right, once again, we finished fairly nicely today. 66-point gain on the Dow, 46,381. A gain of 158 on the NASDAQ, 0.70%. S&P up 29 points, a record close, 0.44%, 6,693. Lost 16 cents on oil, 62.25 a barrel. Jason, what a day for gold. $71.80 gain, 3,777 and 80 cents. Amazing.
Yeah. With interest rates going higher. That's the interesting part. We had Bostic out today, basically, Raphael Bostic, Fed member, stating that he doesn't think we need to cut anymore, was kind of his one-liner. And rates, obviously ticking up a bit, but gold doesn't care. It seems like it just continues to climb that wall with a goal of $4,000 an ounce, and not sure what's going to stop it at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. Remember when we were talking 3,000 was the big number, right? Yeah,
yep.
Getting on the heels of 4,000. You're absolutely right. All right, if you just joined us, let me tell you what we're going to be discussing. Jason's going to give us the stock market review, and then the big story of the day, Nvidia's announcement of a $100 billion into OpenAI, into a massive, massive data center. But again, there's a lot to the story. Jason, let me just get the Nvidia stock performance out of the way, because it was so funny as this interview was going on. All this broke on CNBC. As this interview was going on, I'm sitting there keeping one eye on Nvidia's stock performance and one eye on the interview, and it just kept higher and higher and higher. The more Jensen Huang spoke, the higher the stock got. Finished the day up $7 and a penny, 3.97% gain to 183.61. And again, this big news, $100 billion investment into a 10 gigawatt data center, which again, we're going to explain what these data centers are and why the stock did what it did. But other than that, let's go outside the scope of Nvidia today, Jason. Let's give a nice recap here.
Yeah, mega caps sort of lagged today. Meta, Google underperform. Oracle up 6+%, just on the back of that TikTok deal. They split the CEO role. Safra Katz is going to be moving to the C-suite, higher than the C-suite, more of a senior executive on the board. And really, it's the two folks that were in charge of AI and services that are going to be now the CEO. So that is another area that's been very strong. Apple continues to boost things up 4% today on the back of better than expected iPhone 17 demand. This is the first, at least that I can recall recently, of the providers offering free upgrade, basically, in that, I know for mine, I'm not going to do it because I'm stubborn, but like I've got an iPhone 13 Pro Max, and AT&T said for $2.50 a month, you can have the 17 Pro.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I've heard those offers. Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so I think that's causing a lot of adoption, a lot of excitement around Apple right now, which clearly is helping.
Apple said to the Chinese suppliers, boost things up, boys. The demand is strong. So that's what
it really is.
The stock up. Yeah.
Interest rates ticking up a bit today, as we talked about, the 10-year back at 4.15, despite the fact the Fed cuts rates. The number of people that have been like, why is this happening? It's not supposed to happen. Again, the market discounts this far ahead of it happening. But, that's, I think, spooking folks a touch, but not on the market side. Equities, continue to get chased higher. Remember, there's a trade call. Again, it's called the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, where you're selling Rosh Hashanah and buying Yom Kippur. This is September 22nd through October 1st. Pretty good hit rate. Again, that's only 0.75% on average loss during that window of time. So I'm not pressing you to go day trade your account, but it's just the time of the year where you get that quiet period into earnings as well, where companies are somewhat muzzled from making positive comments, but the market continues to climb that wall of worry, certainly on the tech side. So it's pretty interesting to watch as we just keep any weakness gets bought.
Well, it's amazing. I was sitting there thinking today as we watch Nvidia skyrocket and Oracle and some of these others, where would this market be right now if it were not for AI? Let's say AI was never created, right? We'd probably be, maybe a little bit higher than unchanged for the year. I mean, this had all the makings of being a kind of a lackluster year until all the AI news started to come about and so on and so forth. But man, it is just an overall ecosystem, that it's like creating an entire new economy. It's fascinating to watch this. Fascinating to watch this. All right, boys, let's get to the highlights here. We got about a minute before we got to go to break, but let's once again kind of bring out the big news of what happened today, and then we're going to go into great detail about this. So, like I said, when the CNBC reporter was asked to stand in front of Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, and Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he didn't know what they were talking about, what they wanted to meet about. But basically, what it is the following. So Nvidia announced today that and OpenAI, that they have announced a massive partnership. Nvidia is going to invest, as I said earlier, $100 billion into OpenAI to build huge AI data centers. Now, we're going to describe when we come back what is a data center, right? Because many of you hear the terms like, well, what in the world is a data center? Again, as we said, OpenAI is going to deploy at least 10 gigawatts of Nvidia systems, again, comparable to 4 Hoover Dams worth of power, to train and run future AI models. So we're going to explain also, what does that mean? Train and run train and run AI models. Jensen Huang called it a giant project, reaffirmed OpenAI as the fastest growing software company in history. And those of you that may be new to the market know they are not publicly traded, unfortunately. Can you imagine where that stock would be right now? Oh my gosh. Sam Altman, again, OpenAI CEO, said the output of this super brain will be remarkable in ways that we don't yet understand.
Ooh.
Scary.
That's how we talk about Jason behind his back.
That's right.
Maybe just the don't understand part. I don't know about the super brain.
After this run up of $7 and a penny, 3.97% on Nvidia, closing at 183.61. This has now pushed the market cap of Nvidia to $4.5 trillion.
My gosh.
The largest company by market value in the entire world. Now remember, Oracle, as Jason mentioned, big day today also. And that stock had some nice momentum last week, but once again today, including a little after hours, up $18.04, 5.84% gain, 326.70. Again, remember last week, Oracle jumped after a $300 billion deal with OpenAI, a $1 trillion valuation for Oracle. First phase of this project is expected in the year 2026, using NVIDIA's upcoming Vera Rubin platform, which will be more than twice as powerful as the current chips. And we'll explain what this Vera Rubin platform is. And the deal may also help lower borrowing costs for OpenAI's massive infrastructure buildup. This is another big financial takeaway and again, I'm going to explain the financial engineering / accounting engineering of this $100 billion investment, because it's not really what you think. Don't think NVIDIA is going to write a check to OpenAI for $100 billion. It's not the way it's going to work. But again, what many are saying from a financial standpoint is this could really lower the borrowing cost, not only for OpenAI, but other companies that are going out and going to the bond market or equity markets to obtain capital to build out these data centers, right? Because you can't do what you want to do with AI if you don't have the data center. Well, those again, I mean, $3 to $4 billion, right, Jason? Wasn't that number? 3 to 4 billion is kind of a, hey, we're going to break ground on this and build you a real small one. I mean, yeah, it's like 3 to 4 billion doesn't get you much of anything. That's why we're talking 100 billion on this. But with this type of investment that Nvidia announced today, this could again kind of be the new way that these companies get funded to build their data centers. So again, a lot of groundbreaking type of data came out of this press conference, and we're excited to share it with you. And most importantly, how can you benefit from it? So we've got a list of how this whole situation can hopefully help you in your financial dreams and goals. Let's turn it over to Jack Saban. He's got news, traffic, and weather. Hello, Jack, to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. No funny things before we come back, Dennis.
No breaks allowed.
No breaks allowed. Got to keep this thing serious. Joining us, Dr. Dennis Sanchez, AI Dr. Jason Gaunt, of course, myself. We finished up 66 on the Dow, 158 gain on the NASDAQ, and up 29 on the S&P 500. Many of the excitements of the day, again, driven by Nvidia. If you just joined us once again, quick summary. Nvidia and OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT, announcing a massive deal where Nvidia is going to be investing $100 billion into a massive data center. Once again, it's the power consumption is going to be equivalent to 4 Hoover dams. It is a massive, massive undertaking. It's going to be amazing. 10 gigawatts of power is going to be needed. Again, 4 Hoover dams worth of power to train, run these future models, so on and so forth. So what are we talking about? Why are we doing this? Well, we're going to wrap it up with how can you benefit from this AI boom, right? But first, Dennis, let's start with you. What did you think of this announcement today? Again, you at the beginning of the show, you said not really all that surprised. Go into more detail.
You know, it's interesting because as much as we talk about it, and we've talked about it all day, I still really don't understand what the impact is because we don't know what they're going to do with all that power. They just keep saying, you know,
it's going to run the GPUs.
Train. Yeah, I mean, we know what the data center is for, but why do they need that much? What are they going to do with all that power? What's the ultimate outcome from that? That's the part I don't understand. And it's not the part they're sharing. They're telling us about a construction job, basically, a big one, an expensive one. And this is what it's going to do. But I really don't know what the outcome is. They do. I'm sure they wouldn't build it and get the money to, so that's the part I'm thinking about is what is really the end game there with all that power? Is it just to have it and say you have it and then broker it? And, if you could think of a world where there are only a few players, we're only, it's a handful of players right now. And and noticing these stories, is it all happening in the U.S.? Is any of this going on around the world, on the same scale?
Nvidia made a $2.5 billion investment in the UK for
just 2.5 though.
Just $2.5 billion. Yeah. Again, out of penny cash fund.
Right.
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying. 2 to 3 billion is just going to get you probably 4 walls and a bunch of dirt. I don't know.
From the concept, it's hard to even understand what that power, what we're going to do with that power, how it impacts us. We kind of gravitate towards things will be faster. Is it going to be cheaper? It's going to impact our life in many ways, probably in ways we don't even know.
Well, Jason, what's interesting, I think you just tripped onto something, Dennis, and that is, okay, we know they've got in many cases, the local power source is not large enough or designed to provide this amount of power, right? for just 1 megawatt, much less 10 like this new facility. So, again, you can look at a lot of infrastructure plays and go, geez, what's going to happen with all this power, right? Are they going to use every single watt of power for their data centers, or are they going to sell it off? My other question is, if it's that easy to build a power generating facility, why haven't we? I mean, we've had our share of local problems, from power. Pretty much any town has it, especially Texas. Why hasn't somebody think if these power centers power generation facilities can pop up, quote, in a year or two? Why haven't our existing utility companies done that? Right? That kind of gets you thinking down those lines.
It has to be connected to what they anticipate the kind of power needs are going to be for agents. And that I just think they're so far ahead in their research and what they know they've proven internally what they can already do. It's a big secret right now. Wow, that's a big construction job, but where is that going to go? We haven't even talked about the potential. Is there a defense contract somewhere in the mix here? Of why do we need all that power? What's driving behind this? We have a connection between investment AI and the government right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if they build it up in like the Antarctic. Right, like where you've got cooling.
It's already zero.
Use ice as the
maybe it's a lot cheaper to do it up there, and then we're going to blame them for melting the ice caps or something along those lines.
Yep. So let's kind of hit some of these definitions for our listeners that are not familiar with it. So once again, on this situation, 10 gigawatts equals, again, roughly 4 to 5 million GPUs. That's about what Nvidia ships in a year at its current pace, 4 to 5 million GPUs. Who wants to go for the definition of what a GPU is?
I'll do that one. That one's the easiest one.
I can give you the acronym if you'd like. Yes.
It stands for Graphics Processing Unit. And think of it, the GPU similar to the CPU that we've been more familiar with our computers, except it's a lot different. You pretty much have one chip in the CPU. Maybe they've had parallel processing for a long time, so you may have two chips working in parallel. But with the GPU, you're talking about thousands of chips doing the same thing. So if a process requires multiple steps, they're all in step, thousands of them doing at the same time, which gives them a lot of power. So it's the number of chips you're managing and working with that's driven by the gigawatts, that power to basically do the training, which is teaching these the software, these patterns. And that's really what they're doing with all that power. More and more and more patterns.
I like the analogy you gave in your notes, and that is a CPU, again, what your normal computer has, is a master chef, great at complex steps one at a time. The GPU are stadium kitchens, thousands of line cooks doing similar steps simultaneously. That's why we need many of them. That's a good point. All right. Now, here's a little trivia for you along this point. How many GPUs did ChatGPT 3.5 use? Now we're on ChatGPT 5, right? So we're going to go back
Came out in 2022,
right? Well, OpenAI never published an official count of how many GPUs they needed. Independent estimates at the time put training in the ballpark of 10,000 Nvidia GPUs. Microsoft publicly described building supercomputers with thousands of Nvidia's GPUs for OpenAI. Today's usage is even larger because inference, which is serving answers to millions of people, dwarfs a one-time training run. Again, OpenAI and Oracle, they expanded 4.5 gigawatts. That deal was announced last week. American Infrastructure Partnership, a finance plus cloud coalition with Microsoft, BlackRock, and MGX, aiming to mobilize tens of billions, up to $100 billion, as a matter of fact, into AI infrastructure. Again, that $5 billion deal with Intel last week, so on and so forth. Now, let's kind of walk through, Dennis, or Jason, either one of you, shoot, we're out of time already. What is, what's inside the walls of a data center, right? One of these massive data centers that need, again, equivalent in this example, 4 Hoover dams of electrical output. So let's kind of walk the audience inside of it, and then we'll wrap up with how all of this can benefit our listeners. Our very special guest, Dr. Dennis Sanchez, Jason, myself. Let's turn it over to Kristen Snow right now, Traffic Center. Kristen. Welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH. All right, we're talking about what does Nvidia's $100 billion investment mean for you, this big announcement that came out today. I want to talk about the financial side real quickly, and then we'll get to, again, how this can benefit you. So Jensen Huang and Nvidia, they're not going to just write a check, as I said, to OpenAI for this massive $100 billion investment. So what this basically is going to be, it's going to be kind of called, I'm going to call it circular accounting. So I'll make it real simple. Let's break it down to $1 million. So Nvidia will give, and I use that term, I don't know if it's not a gift, but a promissory note, whatever it is. I'm just going to use the term give. This $1 million to OpenAI. But OpenAI can't use that money and go do whatever they want to do. What do they have to do? They've got to turn around and buy $1 million worth of Nvidia chips. So yeah, you should see Jason's look on his face. Yeah, that's what I mean. Circular account. Yeah. Now, Jason, think about this from an earnings per share standpoint. What if this SEC or somebody wakes up one day and goes, is this kind of, Mickey Mouse accounting? It's like you're almost paying for your own earnings numbers.
That's what the issue with SMCI was. Remember that stock, Supermicro, right? Where that thing got destroyed because people thought they were doing that with Nvidia, and there were these other companies that people were writing articles about where, they sort of existed in order to buy Nvidia chips in countries that couldn't buy Nvidia chips and ship them. Like, there's a lot of that concern. I would agree with you. And almost like a mortgage-backed security, triple leverage CLOs that we had back in the day, when you're like, wait a minute, the same thing's happening multiple times here.
They keep counting it as earnings.
Product. Right, exactly. And you're counting it as earnings. Exactly. And so that, agreed, could certainly become a problem in the future if there's a circular reference error of some kind where your Excel freaks out and says,
right,
no.
That's why I'm
calling it. But the market right now doesn't seem to be ready to do that yet.
No. But, Dennis, you all three of us were chatting during the break, and you're absolutely right on this point, and that is, what's the risk to this, right? You're not a stock market guy anymore, but you were for many years. And yeah, you're looking at it not only from the tech standpoint, but the risk standpoint. We
Mhm.
all three of us lived through the dot-com bust, right? Nothing could go wrong. Everything's going to go up. This thing is never going to stop. And then all of a sudden, those illustrious words by Alan Greenspan,
Irrational exuberance.
irrational exuberance. And that's all it took. And the whole house of cards came crashing down. Are we at risk of something like that with this? Because, Jason, you said the same thing. Technology is changing so fast. We got quantum computing coming. Could we, in 10 years, I don't know, let's go 10 years, could these data centers that are costing billions and billions, could they be nothing more than a big bunch of concrete walls and, almost
They're
looking like a
Kmart's.
Yeah, bunch of, yeah, exactly. A bunch of Kmart, Sears, Roebucks, that type of thing.
And I've seen some negative pieces about, right? Think of how quick technology advances. Like the fact we went from this chipset to this chipset to this chipset at Nvidia, that if they've got a even 5-year shelf life. I mean, heck, 5 years ago, what even was AI in the way that we know it now? So imagine the chips now, 5 years from now, and the cost that they are, right? Versus the revenue that a data center makes. I've seen numbers where essentially the costs are X what the data center will even make over that period of time. And you're like, that math it's not mathing, right? Like, so that's why. And Nvidia says, hey, we'll give you money for you to buy our stuff for X number of years in order to, we have our tentacles in you and you're not going to go to AMD or to whoever else. At some point the math won't math, right? But for now, like we said, there's still enough of a runway that I think there's still time to the story for sure.
Dennis, you want to add anything to that?
No, I just, again, I'm stuck on and it's probably pretty dumb for me to say this, but the antiquity of this model. We're still talking about chips, power, cooling, construction, the same elements that we were talking about when we were building data center 20 years ago.
That's a great point.
Same thing, larger scale.
Got these small nuclear nodes that they're supposed to supply the power. But,
so that concerns me.
No,
it kind of begs for another solution to emerge, which would just really annihilate that model.
Well, I mean, what if, Jason, you were talking about quantum computing, right? Which we don't have time to get into that, but that's kind of quote the next generation of what computing is going to do is through the quantum computing. What if there was one massive data center that housed, you said you saw one on your trip to New York that was in a church, you said?
So this is at Rensselaer Polytech. This is the school my youngest son wants to go to, RPI in upstate New York. And they have an IBM quantum computer there. And it's the size of, I don't know, 20 by 20, if that big. But yeah, I mean, those are what will be the next generation of speed and compute where you don't need as much storage, right. as we have now. So technology will advance, and it's just a matter of, are you buying the beta or are you buying the VHS, right? Yeah. And we'll see.
So first of all, we've got the stock market impact, right? The names that we talk about all the time, the Nvidias, the Oracles, et cetera, AI related stocks, continue to rally, right? Will it continue forever? Absolutely not. So diversified portfolio, but based upon your risk and goals, you should be considering an allocation to AI and all the infrastructure we talked about. Tech revolution, again, it's not just about the chips. We're talking about reshaping economies, right? AI is becoming critical for electricity, the adoption of really how it's going to transform our daily lives. The investment opportunity, again, different companies tied to the AI infrastructure. You look at semiconductors, cloud, the different data centers. Again, this is kind of the picks and shovels play of the gold rush. So there's a lot of different ways that you can play this. And as always, be cautious about this whole situation because you never know when things can change, as the boys just got done saying. That was a lot of fun, boys. Thank you so very much, everybody, for joining us. We do appreciate it. We'll do it again tomorrow on the Jon Sanchez Show. God bless. Have a great afternoon.